Hi guys, so today we are going to just do a quick, fun, really soft, glowy, kind of retro beach scene with a moon, some stars, palm trees, and some ocean water. So I'm starting off with just using a dark blue mixed with gray, and this is a color called Payne's Gray. And you'll notice that I dip into my colors several times just so I can get a base layer. Whenever I do watercolors, I always do a base layer and then you can build on top of it. And I'm just using really light brush strokes to blend that out. And at the bottom here, we're adding like a mint aqua green. I feel like this is going to give a nice glow, especially the more we layer, because we're going to be using gouache and watercolor for this. So I'm going back in with that deep navy blue. We're just going to use some swipes. And the more irregular the swipes are, the better, because that's going to give the water more movement. And I absolutely love these watercolors because they melt together very well. I have used some cheap watercolors in the past and they don't reactivate well and they don't blend very well. And these do. And I have used a lot and these are just absolutely the best. Okay, so we're gonna let that ocean water base layer dry for a little bit. We are going in with that same Payne's Gray mixed with a lot of deep navy blue for the top of the sky. And you'll notice I'm just moving my brush back and forth with rapid swipes over and over to try to get rid of some of those lines. I used a fluffy brush for this. I usually use a flat brush, but because it was a smaller painting, it's not a huge deal. And you can see I'm holding my brush a little bit different. I like to hold it at an angle sometimes and kind of press it on the paper so it's flat. And that also helps get rid of those really harsh lines. That's a technique that I do a lot to blend stuff out. And now we're going in with like a purple periwinkle. To make periwinkle, you're just going to do purple and blue. You can do a dark purple or a light purple, it doesn't really matter. Whatever vibes you want to go for, it is up to you. And we're just blending that up into the sky. And I like to use a lot of complementary colors in my sunsets. I feel like that's the best way to get more of a gradient kind of ombre effect. And because this is going to be a night scene, like the moon is just coming out, I'm not going to do any sunshine or anything like that, no yellow. So I'm going in with a cool purple pink. You can literally just take some light sky blue and pink and it gives you that really pretty mellow color. And now I'm going in with a maroon, just a kind of hot pink mixed with purple. And we're going to start doing the clouds. And you notice I'm just kind of doing these irregular swipes. And this brush kind of has a point on it. So I can either get these really chunky brush strokes or I can get detail. I really do like these brushes. And we are just going to keep going with those irregular shapes as we go with that maroon color. Okay, so we are going to make the clouds darker as we go up. So I just took a little bit of that maroon that we already used in the clouds at the bottom and I mixed it with some dark blue. You could also use violet. As long as you use that color that you used at the bottom in any sunset painting and mix it with another dark color, it tends to be very complementary and the clouds will just naturally melt together. So you notice I'm just feeding these clouds up to the top. I'm trying to give them some angle and some movement to look like there is some dimension, and the clouds will get bigger the higher they get. So we're just going to throw those in. And at the top, I'm adding just a little bit of gray into that blue mixture that we had, because obviously it's a night scene and it's going to be darker and more shadowed up there. Okay, so here you saw me dip into some purple pink. That's gonna give a little bit of reflection on the water. And now I'm gonna add more details. I'm just gonna keep adding that in and layering. And we're gonna go in with this mint green, and we're gonna just add a few swipes of it. You can see that it's already giving the water movement and a lot more value than it just being this flat bluish gray base. And we're just going to keep mixing those colors together that we laid down and blending them out. And again, I just love these because they're really sheer and they just transfer onto paper really well. Now I'm going back in with a regular pink, making sure I get enough color, and we really want that reflection to kind of start showing up. So that's what we're doing here. Alright, so you saw me grab my Himi Jelly Gouache. I'll link this in the description along with the watercolor palette that I use. But we're just using a detail brush and grabbing some dollops of gouache and adding some stars. Since this isn't a full night scene, we're just going to do a few here and there for accents, as if the moon has just come out. You're standing on the beach and you're looking up at a gorgeous sun-kissed sky. Okay, so we are going to paint the moon. We're still using that same detail brush we used for the stars. And I just took a little bit of yellow in my Himi gouache palette and dipped it into my white. It was kind of a naughty nugget and I didn't clean my brush first, but it's fine. Once you get water back into the gouache, if you reactivate these, they clean up really well. I used a little bit of yellow because I wanted it to just look like it was glowing, and that's usually what I do for most of my moons now, is I'll add a little tiny bit of yellow to white, and it adds that really nice glow. Okay, so here I dipped into some dark gray and navy blue, and we're using that same detail brush to paint in some islands in the distance. And this is pretty straightforward. I always do the shape of the island first, right on that horizon, and then I just fill it in. This is such a simple thing to do in paintings, but I feel like when you do these ocean scenes, it adds a little bit of value so that the horizon isn't just flat. You don't have to add these if you don't want to, but I enjoy adding them. They're in almost all of my paintings. Oh, sorry if you guys heard my cat right there, but so what we're doing here is we're dipping into our gouache palette, and we are going to use that minty green. My gouache is so dry, I feel like it's like screaming for water, but it'll work for this tutorial. I like to concentrate that mint color where we laid down that aqua color in the very beginning. And then here we are dipping into the pink gouache and we're doing a couple of swipes up towards the top where that pink reflection would be hitting the water. I love to use watercolor and then layering gouache on top because they interact really, really well together, and it just looks really soft. And I really enjoy working with this medium, so that's what we're doing here. Okay, so here I am just dipping into that plain white gouache, and this is where we are going to add some reflection from that moon that's right above the horizon. And I'm just using really light brush strokes, not a lot of pressure, because I don't want there to be like thick white bands on the painting. I want it to look soft, and I want it to blend in with that mint green and that pink that we already laid down. And rule of thumb, if you have movement in your waves and you're doing reflections, you want to put that reflection right on top of the line that you placed, because that will look more natural and it helps with movement in the water if you're doing a water painting. So I'm going back in with a second layer of gouache on top of that soft white layer that we did, just to kind of add a little bit more glow if we lost any during blending. And notice how I'm concentrating more of the white, and it's more clustered towards the horizon, and it's more gapped out as it gets closer to us. I feel like that kind of gives the illusion of the moon disappearing into, or the moonlight disappearing into the distance. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm adding the silhouettes of the palm trees, and instead of grabbing a flat black, I am mixing black with navy blue because this isn't fully nighttime and I didn't want it to look super harsh like an eyesore. So yeah, I'm just getting the shape of the palm tree in there. I do the base of the palm tree, and then like where those dead palms would be right in the middle of it, like that little cluster that palm trees have. And then I am just doing basic lines for the shape of the palm tree. And the beauty with these, you can do them as irregular as you want, as long as you want, short as you want, it's up to you. So to get the leaves of the palm fronds, I'm using a detail brush. I always use a detail brush for this, and I am hardly using any water with that navy blue and black color that we mixed together. And I'm just swiping them really, really slightly, like no pressure at all. And I start at the base of those lines and I just swipe it out really, really fast. I feel like that's a really good technique, and it's helpful for creating more natural fronds. In the past, if I ever used acrylic or watercolor and I used a lot of pressure on these lines, they would be really thick and they would melt together, and it just didn't look as natural. So I feel like this creates a prettier silhouette, in my honest opinion. So we're just going to work on that now. Okay, so what we're doing here is the final touches. We are going to add some highlights and more details to the waves that I feel like we lost during blending, and we're just going to go in with that pink gouache again over the tops of the waves just to get it a little more glowy. And from there, I think I'm pretty happy with this, and we are done. We're going to remove the tape now. I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial.